yourself extremely bad. It's a very deep game they got going, okay? We got a whole bunch of stuff focused on this. There's our education program. We've got videos and book courses, like we got the 12 or 13-hour one that we just retaped. The website just got updated. It has an introductory, intermediate, and advanced level, and it's continually growing. This is a deep rabbit hole. You can join a Paradigm Home Study Group. There's educators all across this country now. And if you graduated there, you can drop in these Paradigm coffee groups. So you can take, like, our education really just focuses around freeing people from their employment and tax. But this, your rights and freedoms expand to all areas of your life, like your privacy rights and banking rights and all that. And so that's what helps sometimes these coffee groups. It gives you the opportunity to take this information into other areas. So again, learn the path. Step 2 is switching paths. If this is the first you start looking at this, you may look at the past and look at the path you were on and go, I need to change paths. Like, we've met some people who've already been restructured. They just had to change their mind. That was easy. But we've met some people that are so commingled into the past, it takes a lot of work to get them out. And here's the reality of it is, this information you learn here is not a silver bullet. It cannot undo what you did to yourself in the past. But there's different ways of dealing with that, okay? You can turn around, take control of the past, get yourself educated, and it'll put your past into perspective. And the future will take care of the past eventually, okay? But if you don't turn around and take control, it won't help dissolve that fear. And it's funny, the fear is so entrenched. There's a couple stories I like relating this. Met a lot of people who haven't filed for years. And really a lot of the reason they file is after they miss 1 or 2, then they get, oh man, I'm 3 or 4. And now they're so afraid to file because they just don't know what to do. One lady we met, she hadn't filed for 22 years. She was already retired a couple of years, but she was just so scared, So I don't know how she got connected with us or whatever, and I said, well, before you get all scared, I said, how were you working? Well, I was working at this place, and I said, well, they give you a T4? Oh, yeah. Every year? Oh, yeah. I mean, she had one of these long jobs. And I said, well, they're never going to phone you. She goes, well, what do you mean? I said, well, we got together. She brought 1 year. And imagine, 22 years of not filing. She brought 1 year in. We sat it down. I said, this is why they'll never phone you. Okay, we ran it out in 1996. I think she had a tax credit of a tax refund of $341 or something like that. They always take off more than they really need so that they can make a big deal out of tax refunds. It's all part of the game. So that really empowered her. I mean, she's just really released a lot of fear within her, and she's actually motivated now to go and try to get all her T4s, and file back as far as she can. I said, you realize what you got there? You already have your retirement fund. Imagine 22 years plus interest. They'll never phone you. You better start phoning them. Okay? And you can correct errors made from assumptions. It's amazing. A lot of these joinders are assumptive joinders. And sometimes, not all of them, but some of them you can just go in there and correct it. One of the educators, like we had this one guy over in the island, he's just getting educated and stuff, and in the process he had some communication to CCRA, so there's some quasi-joinders there. So they demanded him to file, and he fulfilled the demand, but he was about 3 days late. So technically he failed to comply to a demand letter in time, 3 days late. So they knew that he was getting educated, so they went after him, and not only did they try to take him to court for the 1 year for failing to comply, because he was 3 days late, and they even told him, he says, well, we normally don't mind if you're 3 or 4 days late or whatever, but we want to go to court, use it as a fishing trip. And it was just like, they're so blatant about it. And then what they did was added 3 years of GST charges onto it too. And so because he was working with an educator and just a bunch of series of letter writing, because knowing how the game is played, before it even got to court, we got a nice letter back, or the educator got a nice letter back from the Crown going, well, we're not going to proceed with charge 3, 4, and 5. Or 2, 3, and 4, which was all the GST. They dropped the GST charge because they knew they didn't have any grounds on it. And the first charge, the guy said, hey, I'm already guilty on it. Here's the, why waste time in court? So it's the power of the knowledge by being able to understand the game, go in there and face them for what it is. The truth will, I believe, will always prevail. Because in that whole process, there's this idea they learn the importance of filing honestly. Okay? People say, well, how do I file? And well, you file honestly. Because we all have different lives, and some of you have pension plans that are connected to the officers, some of you don't. Some of you maybe work in two or 3 jobs, and a couple of them you do as a natural person, a couple of them you do as an officer. So there's no distinctive file 0 or file this. It's file honestly, because when you learn to file the truth, see, we've been taught to cheat the tax man on purpose. Because when you cheat the tax man, guess what? You live in guilt and fear the rest of your life. But when you cross that line and you learn to file honestly, the fear is gone. The large course goes through the games they played even after court, and it shows you how by finding the truth and sticking to the truth, the game is over. Okay, step 3, walking the path. You know, there's a lot of people, see, we never even had step 3 for about the first year. We were just throwing videos out to have people get educated. We realized, and a lot of people started realizing there is a little bit of a difference between learning the path, learning this, and actually applying it into your life. And so what that really created was the need to create some additional education for educators to study so they could actually go in and sit down in a business and help a business restructure, help the employees restructure, make sure the education got into there and that people truly understood and be there. You know, it's a really short-term period compared to CCRA's life plan, right? So through that process, you're not forced to learn everything right now. I mean, what you're looking here is a 10-year learning curve, which we compress in a very comfortable, I think it's a 2-year program there. Okay, so you can restructure your business and occupation right in the, instead of waiting until you go 2 years down the road to figure it all out and make all the details. And the whole goal is to get you at the end of that is so that you can make all future decisions based on facts. You know how to look when someone asks you to do something, you're back empowered in your life. That's our whole goal, is because to empower a bunch of individuals, okay, so that we all can stand together. And if by going through this, it doesn't happen overnight because you didn't get wrapped in. Before you know it, shift happens. One day you wake up and you go, what's that feeling? And we've seen it, and it's really neat to see. He goes, what's that feeling? And it's a feeling of freedom. It's something we probably really never relate to. But it's like, wow, you're back in control of your life. You know what obligations you've imposed on yourself. You know that if somebody comes out, tries to blindside you, you're empowered enough to say, well, show me where I have to do that. Show me your authority. I'll do whatever you want. It puts a very calming peace back within your life. And it will happen. It just takes time. So to close this off, I want to sort of look at this quote from Arthur Schopenhauer. He goes, all truth passes through 3 stages. So we'll know eventually, because we've watched these stages, as this truth here starts coming into society, because it will go through these stages, and it's starting to do that. First, it is ridiculed. And depends where you are and the people that are around you. Again, I guarantee you walk up to somebody tomorrow and says, you realize you don't really have to do this if you don't want CPP? They'll laugh at you. Okay, fine. You know, you got to expect that. Okay, there's a lot of, because, and this is no different than humanity is very much like this. How many people, when we thought the earth was flat, the first guy that stood up and said, no, I think it's round, you think they laughed at him? They actually hung him. Okay? Second, it will be violently opposed. See, this information actually scares a lot of people because they don't understand it deep enough to realize their life is not going to be destroyed. And I'm not talking about the average person. I'm talking about those who have a vested interest into this illusion. Okay? Accountants sometimes are very afraid up front until they slow down and see it for what it is. Right? We had like... it's a very scary thing. We had this financial planner. He knows a lot of accountants, and what he did was he went to one of them. Actually, he got educated, and he was fairly well educated too, because he was strong enough to stand on his own. And he went to the accountant and said, "Hey, have you heard this natural person paradigm stuff? You know, about taxes?" And he goes, "Oh, it's a scam." And so he was strong enough to say, "Well, why do you say that? Put your, speak. Give me some facts behind that, right?" And the accountant goes, "Well, because I haven't heard of it." So you got to really watch. Is again, I've yet honestly to see. Well, really, we haven't. We have not ever had an accountant or lawyer who sat to this stuff and ever come to the end. That is why accountants all across this country are shifting, because we understand when we all understand we've all been scammed by the same guys. We need to start working together. We've got tons of CCRA people who thought this was the thing. We have a lot of good developing relationships inside. They're not our enemies. See, we've been taught to fight amongst each other, but when we realize who taught us to fight amongst ourselves, it's that we'll start working together to clean this thing up. And third, eventually, and it's happening, it's going to be accepted as self-evident. You know, all those people who violently oppose it, yeah, I know this, yeah. You know, here we have these options. See, ultimately, we never have to destroy the Income Tax Act. It doesn't have to be repealed or anything. It can sit there. Hopefully, it'll get dusty in the archive somewhere. But it still is a part of an option. So it doesn't have to destroy it. But there will be that day it'll be accepted as self-evident. So to know this truth, we simply have to open our hearts and free our minds. So that's tonight, and I thank you for attending.